In the last talk, I outlined how we can keep the Social Security Fund buoyant in the short term. But this ultimately is not the crux of the issue. What was written about our campaign by the News-Gazette in Champaign, Illinois is, in quotes. Asks Schreiner about Social Security, he talks more about what's become of the elderly in the American society. He contends the elderly have been discarded in nursing homes, assisted living communities, and in their retirement travel, because they are no longer valued in their own communities, and their kids are often on a fast track to somewhere else. Bingo! And I use that word loosely in regard to senior citizens. But come on, let's admit it. The Social Security Fund ultimately helps keep the elderly in their homes, in their assisted living places, in their nursing homes. It's an antiseptic way of pushing the elderly away. Because, well, many of us have become too busy with other stuff. Sue Haig in Seneca, Kansas isn't too busy with other stuff. She took her elderly mom, Lucille, into her home. And 7 siblings who chose to still live in the area all help out with the mom as well. On a stop in Seneca, I talked with the mom, who was lucid 1 minute, then would totally move off the topic in a pronounced, disjointed fashion. Because I have a background as a social worker, I inquired quite professionally, "Sue, I noticed there seemed to be some dementia and other cognitive features with your mom. What's the official diagnosis?" Sue smiled, looked at me and said, "Getting old." I then inquired why many of the kids in the family had decided to stay in the area and help with their mom. "She took care of us. This is our job now." Sue smiled again. Sue then said it was also the essence of the commandment about honoring your father and your mother. With that same ethos, Therese and Pat Walsh of San Antonio, Florida, thought it was their responsibility to turn their basement into a grandparents' apartment for Pat's parents. And Pat said it helped all the way around. Her parents have a place, daily quality time with their grandchildren, their children. House expenses are shared. I once wrote a column for a newspaper in Southern Ohio. It was titled, "Maybe It's Time to Come Home." The column noted that fairly frequently American youth grow up developing quite a rapport with parents, with friends, with neighbors, with teachers, with coaches. Then, at age 18, they trade much of this family and community building away for a trip to college, then a position across the country where the highest paying job might be. I suggested that what this says is more often than not, money and a quest for status in general has become more important than ongoing family and community building in our hometowns. Yet astonishingly enough, easy for me to say, yet astonishingly enough, we've simply come to accept this the way it is. Oh, Mary is in Chicago, and John is in Phoenix, and Ryan is in Tampa, a parent these days will often say, without thinking twice. Connecting the dots, if you could mobilize over time a significant reuniting of families in the United States on a grassroots level, which among other things would inherently include much more house sharing, vehicle sharing, appliance sharing, energy sharing, you would diminish living expenses in kind. As a result, Practically speaking, the amount of money needed in the Social Security Fund for the elderly would diminish in kind. Common sense. And more importantly, with this uniting in a more dramatic and tangible way, the elderly, as a rule, couldn't help but feel much more socially secure. Let me repeat that. Socially secure, loved, and yes, even esteemed within their families and communities. Not to mention, family and community life in general would be enriched exponentially in America. See, ultimately, Social Security shouldn't be about a government fund at all.